Hey guys, it's Jimmy from Kids Opinion, and let's just get right to it. With the release of Black Panther Wakanda Forever, now we have 40 major MCU villains, and I tried to pick one from every movie, or every project I should say. A few of them, only two of them, had two villains, and obviously films like Avengers Endgame had repeat villains with Thanos going in both, but it ended up working out where I have 40 villains to rank. So let's get right into it with number 40, and I have the DODC lady, Department of Damage Control. I forgot what her name was. She was the villain for Miss Marvel, who I consider to be the main villain. I didn't feel like the actress gave anything extra to her performance. I still don't really know very much anything about her. I don't even know her name, and I'm a Marvel fanatic. So there's not too much interesting to her, and I felt like she was, like, so villainous without, like, anything else about her, and it was just a strange decision for this show. And in theory, like, a Department of Damage Control character could be good, but when you just have a character that you don't know anything about, and you don't even know what her end goal is, and anything that makes her tick, it just leads to a very non-interesting villain, I'll say that. Number 39 is Carly Morgenthau, who was the main villain from Falcon and the Winter Soldier. This is someone that I didn't like the actress's performance very much. I found her to be very annoying, not very compelling, and like I've heard a lot of people say, she almost wasn't very villainous because they tried to make her too compelling. Then when they did try to make her do some villainous things, it was almost too villainous. They couldn't find the right way to make her compelling, but also villainous, as you could say. And it just is another reason why Falcon and the Winter Soldier isn't a very good MCU TV show. 38th is Malekith, who for a long time was my least favorite MCU villain, but we've had a few lately that I have not been a big fan of. Malekith is just boring. What I like more about him is that he is a big physical threat for Thor and has some fights with Thor. Besides that, there's a ton of other physical threats in here that are more interesting, more compelling, and just better in general. 37th is Aldrich Killian from Iron Man 3. I'm surprised that this villain is so low on this list, considering that I don't hate the movie, and I generally do like Guy Pearce, who is acting as Aldrich Killian. However, there's like, as I can remember, there's not really very many fight scenes between this character and Iron Man, and you don't really need a villain to have that many fight scenes. Like, there's other villains on this list who aren't really a physical threat, but are just very interesting and compelling and are intelligent and have good plots. Aldrich Killian has one fight scene. He was defeated by Pepper. He's out just like that. I don't really remember too much about him. He starts off as this really nerdy guy and gets, like, really mad, evil, and, like, does, like, acts of terrorism. The betrayal by Tony Stark just isn't enough to make a character change this much. Just wasn't big on this character. 36 is Dreykov from Black Widow. Someone that I think was going to be the main villain of Black Widow. I thought it was going to be Taskmaster, but instead it was Dreykov. Ray Winstone in this character gave a good enough performance, and like he does do very villainous things in there with like mind controlling these women and having them commit acts of terrorism, but just there wasn't much else to that, and it's very forgettable, and I feel like we could have had a much better manipulative character, and there wasn't too much unique about him that made him stand out. Like, we have 40 villains, there has to be something else to make him unique, and that just wasn't there. 35 is Jan Rock, another just villain who falls in there. You don't really remember very much. He's from Captain Marvel, and Jude Law, fine actor. Again, some of these actors who play not the greatest villains, they're still good actors, but I don't like their villains. And Captain Marvel is not a movie I like very much, not in the slightest. And Jan Rock just adds to my problems with that. I don't want to say it comes out of nowhere, because he does have some not so nice aspects as a character, we'll say early on, but they could have dove so much into that relationship with him and Carol Danvers that made it more of a shocking betrayal to her and to the audience. And again, he gets defeated just like that. He's not even close to being a physical match to Captain Marvel. So when finally she has this chance to face him, he's defeated almost instantaneously. In 34, we have Ghost from Ant-Man and the Wasp. A lot of people think that she's a compelling character in this movie. Not there for me. Maybe it was just something about the actor's performance or how they wrote her, but I wasn't that interested or compelled by a Ghost in this film. And they did have some good fight scenes with her. I liked the look of Ghost, but overall I just wasn't really invested in her story, and I was much more invested in minor characters like Sonny Birch, Louise, stuff like that I thought was entertaining and interesting and compelling. Number 33 is Caecilius from Doctor Strange, a character I think is acted by a great actor in Mads Mikkelsen, and also is just his costume, wardrobe, makeup looks really good. Besides that, he's just a bland villain. There's a little bit of darkness with him that I think fits with this movie, and besides that, he's just someone that I don't really miss. Number 32 is a bit of a strange one, but is Fake Groot. What I mean by this is in the short from I Am Groot, forgot what it's titled, I want to say Magnum Opus, I'm not sure what it is. Anyways, when they do the dance battle with Fake Groot and Real Groot and I Am Groot, again, I'm just trying to find something because obviously this series of shorts doesn't have a main villain, and I thought this was the most villainous character in there. When this Fake Groot fights with our Real Groot, it's funny, it's cute, it's like a little dance-off, and it's just nice to see. It's a good break from, like, I want to destroy the world type villains. It's nice to see, but again, it's just made for shorts. You can't have it too high. 31 is Icarus. This is a villain who probably would have been top 15 for me when I first saw the movie, but just like Eternals, excuse me, the movie has just fallen and fallen and fallen for me. And when I keep rewatching it, I keep liking it less and less, and I keep liking Icarus less and less. I feel like they could have had just such a good villain in Icarus, but the main problem with that is they just didn't tie enough in the emotion. These people are family. They've been together for like thousands of years. When they're all fighting against each other, and it's like breaking their hearts. That's what I want to be. I want to see the emotion. And Richard Madden did do a good job in this, but I don't think he did a good enough job. And I kind of put it on the other actors who played the other Eternals. That I didn't buy in that this was a sad enough portrayal and emotion enough portrayal. And 30 is Hulk Todd, who I believe is the real villain of She-Hulk. And I think this is as high as this character could have ever been, because even if he turned into the actual Hulk and had to fight She-Hulk, it wouldn't have worked if he was, because of how he was, it wouldn't have been a physical enough threat, and I feel like in 30th place was the highest that he could have gone. However, I did not like the decision that the show went. I'll get to that in another video, but I did not like how She-Hulk wrapped up with her breaking the fourth wall like that. I like how there's a different type of villain who wasn't really a physical threat for most of it, but he's still doing horrible things to Jennifer Walters. And you want a villain to be villainous, and he is that, but he's villainous without appearing villainous to, like, the general public at first. And that's what's good, because sometimes villains can disguise themselves well, and unfortunately, like Todd also got an audience for himself and helped him. And there's something about that is interesting and compelling. 29 is Ego. So I still love Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, but after my most recent rewatch of this film, just something doesn't really work about his character for me. I haven't exactly pinpointed it. I still like Kurt Russell's performance, but again, he becomes villainous at the very end, and there's not that much of Ego in the third act, or not as much of Kurt Russell's performance. There's like Ego the Living Planet type stuff, but that doesn't really feel like the actual character, even though it technically is. So we get this reveal at the end, which is a bit strange and a bit drastic, but I still like this movie a lot, and I still think most of it works. I just wish that they could have chose a better direction with Ego in this movie. 28 is Whiplash from Iron Man 2. Mickey Rourke, perfectly cast in this role, and great look. Like, I keep saying the words physical threat, and he is a physical threat for Iron Man. But we didn't get that many action scenes with him and Iron Man, and that's unfortunate. He's locked in a lab forever, but he has just such a good motivation. He could have been top 10 villains easily if they would have given him more time, like more just destructing Tony Stark's life. If he would have broke out of prison and then he would have went to the real world and started hunting down Tony Stark like that, not stuck in a lab the whole movie, it could have been so much better, because Tony Stark doesn't really even know that Whiplash is alive for most of the movie, and that's a problem. When the third act comes, and then all of a sudden, okay, here's your real threat, and your main hero had no idea who was there. That's kind of a problem. 27 is Verussa from Werewolf by Night. To be honest, I don't dislike this character, but she hasn't stuck with me as much as the others. Granted, Werewolf by Night's been out for only a month, so who knows, maybe in the future I'll end up liking this character more with more rewatches, and maybe she'll stick with me more. She's a good she serves the role in this, and it's just she's perfect for this role with Elsa, who you could say is the main character of Werewolf by Night. She serves her role perfectly in that, but besides that, she doesn't have much more to do, so I can't have her go any higher. So there's another thing like Hulk Todd. This is as high as this character could have gone with the purpose that she was fulfilling, which she fulfilled it perfectly, and the actress did a just phenomenal job. She was like terrifying, but like had like a charisma / comedic presence at the same time. 26 for me is Red Skull. Even though I love the look of Red Skull, he's never been a favorite for me, and the only reason he's like higher than bottom 10 is because of his return in Infinity War. I thought that was a cool way to bring him back, and his look is just really cool and stuck with me ever since Infinity War. And again, he just has a really good look and a good presence in the first Avenger. I don't think that he's the greatest villain, and I don't think that he's like the perfect match to Captain America in the movie, which is unfortunate, because I know a lot of people like him, and I wish that I could see that side of Red Skull that everybody sees. 25 is Arthur Harrow. I think Arthur Harrow, again, would be top 10 if Moon Knight was like a 15-episode show. And I think that it should have been a 15-episode show. And it pains me that it isn't, because we should have had more time with these characters. And it ticks me off of how Arthur Harrow died in the end. Because if we had more time with him, more manipulativeness, more of a deep dive into this character, that would have been good. What I like about this is Arthur Harrow is not the physical threat to Moon Knight until the final battle. And that's dumb. He should have never been the physical threat to Moon Knight, because that's just not who he is. Getting this power of Amen doesn't make sense. Ethan Hawke in his red jacket, or whatever you want to call it, flying around fighting Oscar Isaac's Moon Knight, that doesn't work. But besides that, just a great villain, and I wish they wouldn't have ended on such a sour note for me. 23 is Agatha Harkness, another character who hasn't worked for me like she has others, because she does do some villainous things, but she's a bit goofy, and she's not even close to being a match for Scarlet Witch, because Wanda's so powerful. Yes, this is a bit weaker version of Wanda before she found her true powers and became the Scarlet Witch, and I like Kathryn Hahn's performance, but I think it's just that she was a good character, but I don't think she ever should have been the main villain of the show, because the show does go to some dark places, and I don't think that Kathryn Hahn suits a very dark character. Even though she can be a little, like, villainous at times in the show, I don't think she suits the darker tones that this show WandaVision sometimes had. And then, I actually skipped one, sorry. Agatha Harkness was 23rd. Before that was 24, which was Kingpin, my bad. I love I've seen the first season of Daredevil, and I love it. And I love Kingpin in it. In Hawkeye, he's a good character. I feel like he still has the same presence, which some people disagree with. The same presence in Hawkeye that he did in Daredevil. Not everyone agrees with that. I think that he was very good in this show, but he was just so tiny. I think that he will become top 10 MCU if he continues to be such a great character in Echo, and I really liked him in this really small part I saw in Hawkeye. Now, 22nd is He Who Remains. when I do this video again, maybe a year from now, Kang and He Who Remains will be different characters because they are different variants of each other. And I thought He Who Remains really fit what he was supposed to be doing in this. He was very compelling. Jonathan Majors crushed it. His monologue, the scene, it didn't have to... What I love about this show is that it handled the ending perfectly, where it didn't have to have this final blockbuster finale. And it shows that not all shows have to end like that. She-Hulk was trying to do the same thing, but it's a show about Hulks, so it shouldn't have ended like that. And He Who Remains fits with that, because he wasn't a physical threat for Loki, but he was just such this, like, foreboding character, that even though he didn't really do anything physically, caused all these horrible things, but he's still just so charming. And Jonathan Majors balanced all of that perfectly. Now, 21st place, barely missing the top 20, I'd say, is Yellow Jacket, played by Corey Stoll. I never understood the problem for this character. The problems that people had with this character. I loved him. I loved the look. I liked the performance. And I just think that it is overall a very good character. And I guess you could say he's kind of by the numbers. He's not the most interesting character beyond that. But he serves his role. And he's always been more menacing and intimidating than I think people give him credit for. Because whoever designed the costume for this movie, well done. Now, the top half, leading off, number 20, is Abomination. If they handled him better in She-Hulk, the second half of She-Hulk, he could have been higher. Great character in The Incredible Hulk, and I think that the first 3 episodes of She-Hulk really showed more parts of Emil Blonsky that, like, kind of, you understood why he did what he did in The Incredible Hulk. But then after that, he became too goofy, and we never got another Abomination fight. That's disappointing to me. Now, 19th place, we have Gore the God Butcher. This is disappointing because, again, he's just such a good villain. He could have been such a good villain. We get Christian Bale, just amazing. His performance, riveting, sometimes terrifying, sometimes, like, makes you laugh in a way. Not like the cheesy laughs like the rest of Thor: Love and Thunder, but almost like because he's so charming and has so much charisma. And is so likable. And other times you're like really feeling bad for him and you're sad, and he's just such a chameleon, as people say. He can do anything. But he was in the wrong movie, or he was in the wrong type of movie, and we didn't get to see any butchering on scene. He wasn't really fighting as much. He wasn't as brutal as I wish he could have been, because the power for Gore is there, but the brutality, the name Gore the God Butcher should have more brutality, and it just wasn't there. Besides that, Christian Bale knocked this performance out of the park. 18 is Ironmonger, the original MCU villain, and there's just something about Jeff Bridges in this role. Perfect Jeff Bridges is a great actor, and I don't think he's often a villain, which is crazy, because he kills it in here, and there's so much, like, I don't want to say convoluted, but it's a little bit complicated with the story with this character, and all the plots that he's trying to do to kill Tony. And over time, it fleshes that out throughout the movie, and it makes his character more interesting, and his motivations. And you can kind of see where he's coming from a bit, where he feels that he should be the CEO of this company, but because he pre-terrorist attack, Tony Stark, like before he was exploded in that car, that's kind of what Obadiah Stane was. Somebody who wants to control the company, but they're just controlled by greed more than anything. And that's what makes this character interesting. 17, another greedy character who's kind of like pre-terrorist attack. I don't like saying that. Pre-2008 Tony Stark, yeah, we'll say that, is Justin Hammer. By the way, when I say terrorist attack, I'm talking about the thing at the beginning of the first Iron Man, where a Stark Industries bombs Tony's car that he's in, and it blows up. That's what I'm referring to. 17 is Justin Hammer. Sam Rockwell's so good in this, and again, another character that could be top 10, but he hasn't come back. It's been 12 years. Kevin Feige, bring him back. He's so charming in this role, just so funny. I love Sam Rockwell and like everything he chooses to be in. Like Jojo Rabbit, he's just so awesome. And if he could have a bigger role, like please put him back in Armor Wars, because there's a part of him that's like, dude, you shouldn't be doing that. That's not okay. You're being a villain. And there's other times where he's just so happy to see on screen. You're so happy that he's there, cracking jokes, doing sometimes terrible things, and it's because of Sam Rockwell.